Mayday! Mayday! The rig's on fire. The voice on the radio was strained, trembling, a desperate cry echoing across the waves. Flames licked the steel skeleton of the Deepwater horizon, turning night into hellish daylight. The sea itself seemed to boil, bursting into flames as black smoke clawed toward the stars. 11 men trapped inside were fighting not just the fire but time, and a monstrous truth about the cost of corporate greed. This wasn't just an industrial accident. This was a catastrophe that would shake the world's largest oil producer to its core and expose a sinister calculus where human lives were mere line items on a balance sheet. It was April 20th, 2010. The Deepwater Horizon, a massive offshore oil rig, floated some 50 miles off the coast of Louisiana, drilling one of the deepest wells in history. Workers arrived early for their shifts, checking equipment and greeting each other in the usual banter of men who knew the dangers but accepted them as part of the job. The air was thick with salt and humidity, and the Gulf's gentle waves masked the tempest brewing beneath the surface. Mike Williams, a veteran rig electrician, had an uneasy feeling as he inspected the equipment that morning. Something felt off, he would later recall. Pressure gauges were reading high. We ran tests, but the numbers didn't add up. Still, the bosses pushed to keep drilling. We were on a deadline. Pressure wasn't just in the pipes, it was in the boardrooms. BP executives and contractors were under intense scrutiny to deliver results fast and cheap. Days earlier, cost-cutting measures had slashed safety inspections, and key maintenance steps were skipped or rushed. At 9:45 p.m., a surge of natural gas exploded from the well-sealed chamber, shooting fireballs into the night. The rig shuddered as flames engulfed the platform. Emergency alarms blared, but for many, it was already too late. Workers scrambled for lifeboats, others were trapped behind locked doors or engulfed in flames. The inferno roared for hours, visible from miles away. Coast Guard ships raced to the scene, battling the fiery sea. The Deepwater Horizon's massive steel structure groaned and twisted, eventually collapsing into the ocean depths, taking 11 men with it. The initial chaos was overwhelming. Eyewitnesses later described screams carried by the wind, thick smoke that burned lungs, and desperate radio calls pleading for rescue. As the smoke cleared, investigators began piecing together the disaster. But subtle oddities emerged. Why had safety alarms been ignored? Why were pressure tests showing abnormal readings but drilling continued? Why had several key safety procedures been skipped in the hours before the explosion? Internal emails hinted at cost-cutting pressure. Contractors warned of potential risks, only to be overridden by executives focused on schedules and budgets. But the real story was buried deep, beneath layers of corporate secrecy, denial, and deliberate deception. Before we unravel the dark decisions that led to this disaster, pause for a moment. What do you think caused this explosion? Was it a tragic accident, or something far more sinister? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for the full story behind the Deepwater Horizon disaster, a story of greed, lies, and lives lost. The 11 men who perished were fathers, brothers, and sons. Men like Donald Vidrine, the well site leader who had warned of cement problems days before. Or Gordon Jones, who dreamed of retiring soon but never got the chance. Their stories remind us that behind every headline, behind every corporate memo, are real people paying the ultimate price. This chapter is just the beginning. What followed was a sprawling environmental catastrophe. Millions of barrels of oil spilled into the Gulf, devastating ecosystems and livelihoods. But more terrifying still was what investigations would uncover, a corporate machine willing to gamble with human lives to save millions of dollars. A machine that calculated death as an acceptable cost. The fire may have been extinguished, but the flames of greed and cover-up were just starting to burn. If you want to uncover the dark decisions and cover-ups hidden beneath the waves, hit that bell icon to get notified when Chapter 2 drops, where internal memos revealed the chilling truth about cost-cutting and ignored warnings. We knew it was a disaster waiting to happen. But the orders came down loud and clear: meet the deadline, no matter what. Behind the blazing inferno that destroyed the Deepwater Horizon rig lay a series of deadly decisions, cold, calculated, and drenched in greed. Internal memos and silenced warnings reveal a corporate culture that chose profit over safety, sealing the fate of 11 men. BP's Deepwater Horizon project was billed as a pinnacle of engineering prowess, drilling the deepest well ever attempted in the Gulf of Mexico. Investors drooled over projected profits, executives basked in bonuses, and contractors raced to deliver results on time. Yet beneath this glossy surface lurked troubling signs. In the months leading up to April 2010, multiple warnings about safety and equipment integrity surfaced. The most critical involved the cement job designed to seal the well and prevent volatile hydrocarbons from escaping. Halliburton, the cement contractor, had applied a new cement mixture that was faster and cheaper but less tested in these extreme depths. Engineers on site had expressed concerns, reporting irregularities in pressure tests, vital checks to ensure the well's integrity. The problem, those tests failed repeatedly. When Halliburton's tests showed the cement seal was potentially compromised, some rig workers and engineers pressed for more testing and safety measures. Donald Vidrine, the BP well site leader, was among those who felt uneasy. He raised red flags during meetings and insisted on extra caution. But the higher-ups were not listening. Emails leaked during investigations revealed pressure from BP executives to keep costs down and maintain schedule. Safety protocols were relaxed, sometimes skipped altogether, as managers feared the financial and reputational hit from delays. One memo chillingly stated, "We recognize some risks, but accept them as the cost of doing business." On the rig, workers felt the squeeze firsthand. The drill floor was a hive of urgency. Fatigue and stress took a toll, but the message was clear: move fast, move forward. Safety meetings were shortened or canceled. Safety equipment was outdated or malfunctioning. When a critical pressure test failed just hours before the explosion, a BP executive dismissed the results as inconclusive and pushed to proceed. Ramon A. Ramirez, a former rig worker, recalled, "We all knew things weren't right. Equipment was acting funny. We told them. But they said, keep drilling. I told myself, just finish this job and get out. But that hope was shattered that night." The executive mindset was focused on quarterly results and stock prices. Greed wasn't just a byproduct, it was the engine. Executives had every incentive to cut corners, bonuses tied to project milestones, pressure from shareholders to outperform rivals, and a culture that prized risk-taking masked as innovation. In this environment, warnings from engineers and rig workers were nuisances, delays were losses, and human lives became collateral damage. Internal communications revealed phrases like acceptable risk, where the risk was death or injury to workers and the environment. The cementing process was meant to create a watertight seal in the well's casing, a crucial barrier to prevent explosive gas leaks. But the mixture used was rushed, and quality control was lax. Halliburton engineers expressed doubts in testing meetings. One contractor testified later that the cement was not stable under pressure and that BP managers insisted on proceeding despite concerns. These decisions set off a chain reaction. When gas surged up the compromised well, there was no adequate barrier to stop it. On board the Deepwater Horizon, crew members were unaware of the full extent of the risks. Most trusted that the company would prioritize their safety, that inspections and tests meant something. But whispers circulated. Some workers reported abnormal smells or sounds, others witnessed rushed maintenance or safety drills skipped. One worker described a tense meeting the morning of the explosion where concerns about pressure tests were raised but dismissed by supervisors as overcautious. Several individuals attempted to raise alarms through official channels, but their voices were muffled. Whistleblower accounts emerged during investigations, engineers and workers who feared retaliation or job loss if they spoke up. One Halliburton engineer, under anonymity, revealed, "I told management the cement job was a disaster waiting to happen. They told me to keep quiet or face consequences." This chilling suppression of truth was emblematic of a corporate system prioritizing profits over transparency. In the days and weeks following the explosion, BP's public statements painted a picture of an unfortunate accident, mechanical failure, operator error, or unforeseeable circumstances. But internal documents told another story. Emails and reports leaked by investigators exposed efforts to downplay safety lapses and obfuscate responsibility. Executives crafted talking points blaming unpredictable events, even as they buried evidence of ignored warnings and flawed procedures. While executives debated financial losses and legal exposure, the true cost was measured in human lives. 11 men lost forever, fathers who left empty chairs at dinner tables, sons who would never call home. Families shattered, communities in mourning. The ripple effect would reach far beyond the rig. Environmental disasters, devastated fisheries, and ruined livelihoods along the Gulf Coast. If you're outraged that greed could silence warnings and cost lives, smash that like button and share this video. Would you stand up and speak out if your safety was compromised? Comment below, and subscribe to follow the unraveling truth behind the Deepwater Horizon disaster. This chapter has only scratched the surface. Behind every shortcut, behind every ignored warning, lies a calculated gamble, one where human lives were stakes in a deadly game. In the next chapter, we'll hear from the workers themselves, their diaries, their fears, and their desperate hope that someone would listen before it was too late. If only someone had listened. If only the alarms hadn't been silenced. For the men aboard the Deepwater Horizon, every day was a precarious dance on the edge of disaster. Their whispers of fear and frustration grew louder with each ignored warning, but no one heard them. Until it was too late. To understand the tragedy, we must first meet the men who called the Deepwater Horizon home for weeks on end, men whose lives revolved around grueling shifts, salty air, and the omnipresent risk that lurked beneath the waves. Mike Williams, an electrician, was one of them. A family man from Louisiana, Mike had spent years in offshore oil work. He was known for his calm demeanor, a reliable voice among his crew. Yet in the days before the explosion, even Mike found his nerves fraying. There was a heaviness in the air, he later recounted in a testimony. We had a lot of small things go wrong, pumps that didn't work right, strange noises in the pipes. It wasn't normal. Every worker on that rig knew the dangers. Blowouts, fires, equipment failure, these were realities of the job. But what made the difference was trust in the company's commitment to safety. That trust, it turned out, was fragile. After the disaster, investigators discovered a journal kept by a rig worker named Jason Anderson. His entries painted a vivid picture of life on the rig, the camaraderie, the exhaustion, and the growing unease. April 16, 2010. Pressure test still not right. Something's off with the cement. Managers say it's within limits, but I don't buy it. I'm worried about the well integrity. Everyone's nervous, but no one wants to speak up too loud. April 18th, 2010. We had a safety meeting today, but it felt rushed. They told us to focus on hitting the schedule. Safety first is just a slogan now. A few guys are saying they want off the rig. April 19th, 2010. Gas alarms went off during a test. It was scary. Someone joked it was just the rig's way of reminding us to pray. No one laughed. We're all on edge. Jason's diary wasn't unique. Several workers spoke of near misses, incidents that should have been warnings but were quickly swept under the corporate carpet. One such incident involved a pressure spike that nearly caused a blowout days before the explosion. The rig's blowout preventer, a last resort device meant to seal the well, malfunctioned and had to be repaired urgently. Crew members remember tense discussions about whether the rig should continue drilling, but BP's well site leader insisted on pressing forward to meet deadlines. We were being pushed to go faster, 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 recalled another worker. Safety came second to the schedule and the money. As the rig's tension mounted, a silent divide grew between the men on the floor and the managers in the control room. Workers whispered among themselves about faulty equipment and ignored alarms. Yet voicing concerns was risky. Whistleblowing could lead to reprimands, lost shifts, or blacklisting in the tight-knit offshore community. Several employees testified that management dismissed safety concerns as fearmongering or obstructionist. One crew member described an incident where a safety officer was told to stop bothering everyone after raising issues about cement quality. Beyond the physical dangers, the workers battled exhaustion. Offshore shifts were long and grueling, often 12 hours on, 12 hours off, for weeks at a time. Sleep-deprived and overstressed, mistakes became more likely. By the time my shift ended, I felt like I was running on fumes, a former rig hand said. But there was no room to slow down. The rig doesn't stop for tiredness. Fatigue compounded the risk, dulling awareness of the subtle signs that something was seriously wrong. Despite BP's public claims of prioritizing safety, the rig's culture told a different story. Safety drills were sometimes skipped or shortened to save time. Maintenance was delayed. Equipment inspections were rushed or bypassed entirely. In one particularly haunting testimony, a worker recounted how a crucial valve was left uninspected due to time constraints imposed from above. It was like we were racing towards disaster, but no one wanted to admit it, he said. On April 19th, the day before the tragedy, the rig hummed with nervous energy. Workers performed routine checks, but many felt the weight of unresolved concerns. Donald Vidrine, the BP well site leader, was unusually quiet that day. He had voiced concerns earlier about cement quality but was pressured by corporate supervisors to proceed. He looked exhausted, like he was carrying the weight of the whole rig on his shoulders, one crew member recalled. As night fell, the rig prepared for the final push, unaware that the next day would change everything. Imagine being one of these workers, caught between fear for your safety and the need to keep your job. If you think whistleblowers deserve protection and respect, smash that like button and tell us in the comments, what would you do if you knew disaster was looming? Subscribe now to stay with us as we unravel the heartbreaking stories and hidden truths behind the Deepwater Horizon tragedy. This chapter's account set the stage for the catastrophe, painting a picture of simmering tension and ignored warnings. The whispers in the rig weren't just about faulty equipment, they were warnings from the heart, a human chorus drowned out by the roar of profit. Next, we will expose the domino effect, the catastrophic spill, environmental devastation, and the lives forever changed. The explosion was just the beginning. As black oil gushed into the Gulf, a wave of destruction swept through fragile ecosystems and communities, leaving a trail of death, despair, and devastation. Lives lost were only the start. The true cost of greed was about to explode in ways no one could have imagined. When the Deepwater Horizon rig sank, the wellhead it was drilling began spewing oil at an unprecedented rate. For 87 agonizing days, an estimated 210 million gallons of crude oil poured into the Gulf of Mexico, an environmental catastrophe of historic proportions. Oil slicks covered thousands of square miles, suffocating marine life and contaminating shorelines. The Coast Guard and BP scrambled to contain the spill, deploying booms and skimmers, but efforts lagged behind the relentless flow. The Gulf's delicate ecosystems, marshes, estuaries, and coral reefs began dying in silent waves. Fishing towns along the Gulf Coast, whose livelihoods depended on clean waters, faced economic ruin. Fishermen like Tommy Guidry watched helplessly as their nets came up empty, their boats moored, their futures uncertain. "The water is our life," Tommy said. When it turned black, it was like someone took the soul out of the Gulf. Tourism plummeted. Beaches closed. The human toll extended far beyond the rig workers, touching thousands whose lives revolved around the Gulf. Back home, families of the 11 men who died aboard Deepwater Horizon struggled to make sense of the loss. Melissa, wife of electrician Mike Williams, described the crushing weight of sudden tragedy. "He was my rock," she said, tears welling. "And now, there's just silence where his laughter used to be." Support groups formed, and communities rallied, but justice seemed a distant hope. The disaster also exposed deep flaws in regulatory oversight. The Minerals Management Service, MMS, responsible for offshore drilling safety, was criticized for cozy relationships with industry and lax enforcement. Investigations revealed the agency often prioritized industry growth over rigorous safety checks, allowing cost-cutting practices to flourish unchecked. Delays in government response and conflicting messages only fueled public anger. BP's public relations teams insisted the spill was under control, while internal emails revealed executives knew the leak was far worse. In one leaked message, a senior BP official lamented, "We are putting a happy face on a disaster that is getting worse by the day." Investigators uncovered attempts to withhold data and mislead both regulators and the public. Congressional hearings featured heart-wrenching testimonies from survivors and victims' families. Representative Betty Sutton read a letter from a widow. "We lost our husband, our father, and the people responsible still walk free. How is this justice?" The nation watched as the gulf between corporate power and ordinary lives became starkly clear. If this devastation moved you, hit the like button and share this video. Do you think corporations and regulators did enough? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to follow the fight for justice in the coming chapters. Beyond the immediate spill, the disaster's impacts reverberated through Gulf ecosystems and economies for years. Endangered species suffered. Fishing quotas tightened. Cleanup workers faced health risks from toxic exposure. The Gulf's recovery remains fragile, a reminder of the lasting scars greed can leave. As public outrage mounted, investigations intensified. Forensic experts began to piece together the web of deception, negligence, and greed. The true extent of corporate culpability was coming into focus. Next, we will follow the investigators as they uncover evidence that would shake BP and the oil industry to their core. Behind the public facade of corporate apologies and carefully crafted statements, investigators uncovered a labyrinth of lies, falsified safety tests, shredded documents, and a conspiracy to hide the truth. The deeper they dug, the darker the story became, a chilling testament to greed's ruthless grip. The U.S. Chemical Safety Board, CSB, Department of Justice, DOJ, and multiple agencies launched exhaustive investigations into the Deepwater Horizon disaster. Their first task, recover evidence from the wreckage. Divers scoured the sunken rig, photographing, cataloging every piece of twisted metal and malfunctioning valve. Forensic engineers painstakingly reconstructed the sequence of failures that led to the blowout. As subpoenas piled up, BP's internal emails and reports began to surface. They told a story of ignored warnings, contradictory test results, and deliberate misinformation. One memo from a Halliburton engineer stated bluntly, "Cement job failure was predictable and preventable, yet we pushed ahead." Another internal email revealed efforts to spin faulty pressure tests to appear within acceptable limits. Further investigation uncovered that key evidence had been tampered with or destroyed. Documents related to cementing procedures and safety tests were shredded or withheld. Witnesses reported pressure from management to clean up files and minimize risk exposure. One whistleblower described receiving a call, "Make sure those emails disappear." As evidence mounted, BP launched an aggressive legal defense. Corporate lawyers argued the disaster was caused by unforeseen mechanical failures and operator error. Executives portrayed themselves as victims of circumstance. But prosecutors wielded the damning internal communications like a scalpel, cutting through the PR veneer. BP executives and contractor representatives faced congressional hearings. Some stonewalled, others equivocated. Key figures refused to answer direct questions or admitted only partial knowledge. Yet whistleblower testimonies painted a starkly different picture of a culture that valued deadlines over safety and profits over lives. Experts analyzing the case highlighted traits common in corporate malfeasance: denial, refusal to acknowledge risk or fault; diffusion of responsibility, blaming contractors or lower-level employees; profit obsession, viewing safety as a cost, not a necessity; moral disengagement, rationalizing harm as acceptable collateral. This mindset allowed decision-makers to disregard warnings and ethical responsibilities. If you're shocked by how far greed can distort truth, hit like and share this video. Have you seen similar cover-ups in your community? Tell us your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more exposés of corporate crimes. With mounting evidence, the public and government demanded accountability. Civil suits and criminal investigations proliferated. BP's image suffered irreparable damage, its executives under unprecedented scrutiny. But even as the courtroom battles raged, a chilling memo awaited discovery, one that would reveal the cold, calculated calculus behind the disaster. Next, we will uncover the sinister truth, a memo that shocked the nation and sealed the fate of BP's top brass. Buried deep in BP's archives, a memo surfaced, a cold calculation of risk and human life, laying bare a corporate heart willing to sacrifice workers for profit. This was no accident. It was a death sentence signed in boardrooms far from the burning rig. During the federal trial, prosecutors unveiled a document that became the smoking gun, the infamous cost-benefit analysis memo. Penned years before the disaster, it coldly estimated the financial cost of potential deaths against the profits saved by cutting safety corners. The memo stated that it was cheaper to pay for potential deaths than implement expensive safety measures. This callous calculation sent shockwaves through the courtroom and the public. This memo crystallized a ruthless mindset, human lives reduced to dollar signs. Executives had weighed the risk of death as an acceptable loss in pursuit of shareholder returns. Families of the victims sat stunned as this moral bankruptcy was laid bare. Melissa Williams, widow of Mike Williams, spoke tearfully. "They didn't just lose my husband, they decided he was worth less than their profits." The trial was a spectacle of tension and emotion. Prosecutors methodically dismantled the defense's narrative, presenting internal emails, expert testimony, and survivor accounts. BP's top executives were called to testify. Many claimed ignorance, some blamed subordinates. But the evidence was overwhelming. After months of grueling testimony and deliberations, BP executives were convicted on multiple counts of manslaughter and negligence. Sentences ranged from hefty fines to prison terms. The verdict was hailed as a landmark moment, a warning that corporate greed would no longer be shielded from justice. News outlets worldwide covered the verdict extensively. Editorials condemned the cold calculus that led to deaths. Activists and survivors called for stronger regulations and corporate accountability. Experts explained how executives dissociated from the human consequences of their decisions. By framing deaths as statistical risks, they avoided moral responsibility. This psychological distancing enabled decisions that were profitable but deadly. If this chilling revelation shook you, hit like and share this video to spread awareness. How do you think corporate culture can change to prevent tragedies like this? Comment below and subscribe to join the fight for justice. BP faced massive reforms and oversight changes. New regulations aimed to prevent repeat disasters. But the scars remained, families mourning, ecosystems recovering slowly, communities transformed forever. The story of Deepwater Horizon is one of greed, tragedy, and reckoning. Now, we will witness the justice served, the healing that follows, and the enduring lessons carved into the Gulf's battered shores. After years of anguish and legal battles, the gavel finally fell, a verdict that echoed beyond the courtroom walls. BP executives were convicted, but no sentence could bring back the 11 men who died or erase the scars on the Gulf. This is the story of reckoning, resilience, and the fight to hold greed accountable. In the wake of overwhelming evidence, federal authorities arrested several top BP executives, charging them with manslaughter and criminal negligence. The courtroom became a battleground for justice. Survivors, families, and advocates packed the gallery, waiting for a verdict that would honor the memory of the fallen. The trial was punctuated by raw, emotional testimony. Melissa Williams, widow of electrician Mike Williams, recounted their last conversation. "He called me that night, saying everything felt wrong," she said, voice breaking. If only someone had listened. Families shared photos, letters, and memories, humanizing statistics into real people, real loss. After weeks of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict, guilty on counts of manslaughter and criminal negligence. Sentences included substantial prison terms for key executives and multi-million-dollar fines for BP. Legal experts called it a watershed moment for corporate accountability. The disaster spurred sweeping reforms. New regulations on offshore drilling were enacted, safety protocols tightened, and oversight agencies restructured. BP and its contractors implemented rigorous safety training and inspection regimes. Yet the wounds ran deep. The Gulf's ecosystem still shows signs of trauma. Fishing and tourism industries struggled to recover. Communities faced long-term economic and health challenges. The Deepwater Horizon disaster is a stark reminder: when greed eclipses humanity, lives are lost. But it also shows the power of truth, justice, and collective action. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share to raise awareness. Join our community dedicated to exposing corporate crimes and supporting victims. Pre-order our exclusive investigative ebook for deeper insights and unreleased interviews. Together, we can ensure no tragedy like this ever happens again. As the Gulf slowly heals, the memories of those lost remain a solemn call to action. Their legacy demands we never forget the cost of unchecked greed.